Hello folks, this is Mr. Dan coming to you from the Landscape Design Classroom, and today I'm going to talk to you about what makes ecosystems work. So what is an ecosystem and how does it work? An ecosystem is a complex network of living and non-living parts. Each organism is affected by other organisms. So we're going to define that in two terms: biotic, which is all the living organisms in an ecosystem. Some examples of this would be plants, animals, microorganisms, and abiotic, which is the non-living parts of the environment of an ecosystem. So examples of this would be space, soil, water, sunlight, and climate. Biotic living organisms use energy and matter to live, interact with their abiotic environment and other biotic organisms in the web of life. There's three main types of matter used here, used by biotic organisms. That'd be carbon, nitrogen, and water. So that's the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, and hydrologic cycle. So if we take a look at the carbon cycle here, it's kind of like the circle of life. So anywhere you start in here is going to end up being basically recycled over and over again. So carbon dioxide being used in photosynthesis, which photosynthesis going into the soil, eventually into ocean uptake, back to living things. So basically the circle of life is the carbon cycle. The nitrogen cycle, as you can see here, is nitrogen in the atmosphere going down into the ground here, nitrogen fixing bacteria and root nodules, nitrogen fixing soil bacteria, and eventually making its way around and becoming right back into nitrogen in the atmosphere. And then your water cycle, evaporation and transpiration, turning into condensation through transport, and then down to precipitation, into runoff, and back into your groundwater, and then going back around again. So, some abiotic non-living factors set the limits on how biotic communities will grow. For plants, amount of sunlight, type of soil, water, and climate. For animals, habitat, including available plants, climate, temperature, and cover. So understanding food chains, this is providing the energy plants, animals, and humans need to live. Three parts: producers, decomposers, and consumers. And basically they all work going in that circular motion, in that circle of life motion: decomposers, producers, consumers, and over and over and over again. So the food chain includes producers, green plants using photosynthesis and the sun's energy to grow and produce food for other organisms. Decomposers, breaking down waste products and dead organisms. And then consumers cannot manufacture their own food. Animals, humans, birds, fish, etc. So fish the consumers are taking it in, they're dropping it down, then it's being produced by the green plants, and then decomposed, breaking down waste products and dead organisms. So producers in phase one of the food chain: energy from the sun, nitrogen from nitrates in the soil, carbon from carbon dioxide in the air, and it produce protein and carbohydrates. Consumers in phase two of food chain: plants eaten by consumer animals, fish, or other organisms. Plant eaters eaten by meat-eating animals, and eggs and milk used by predator animals. Decomposers in phase three of the food chain: dead plants and animals become waste material. Microorganisms act as decomposers. Carbon dioxide, nitrites and nitrates are released into the environment. So the biotic pyramid, a combination of all possible food chains, is called the food web. The food web can be viewed as a pyramid. Energy, heat, is lost each time something is consumed, and every ecosystem must have more producers than consumers. So, example of a food web: you have our humans creating organic matter. You basically have everything creating organic matter, but whenever you get down to organic matter down here, that's whenever you start seeing bacteria coming up for the plants, protozoa to nematodes to arthropods, going to songbirds, and you see organic matter going back and forth. So the only time you see something that's not going to be going back inside that human is organic matter coming from them. But those plants go to grazing animals, they go to humans, they become organic matter. So you continue having that cycle. So let's take a look at a food pyramid. At the bottom, we have more of these. At the top, we have less. So at the bottom, we have decomposers moving up to plants, moving up to consumers of plants, moving up to humans and animals consuming both plants and animal products, and the last one, animals eating only meat. So ecological succession, you have primary, changes occurring through predictable natural succession that's gradual, occurs over a long period of time, concludes with a final climax community. Set and secondary, changes over time when the environment changes and or new living organisms are introduced. So some examples here. So a prairie or forest, that would be prairie grasses, shrubs and trees. And then upon succession, which would be silt and organic waste, plants at the edges, grass, smaller plants, shrubs, and trees. So some examples of secondary disturbance succession would be plowing, cutting, fire, floods, and storms. So anything that is going to disrupt or disturb that succession is going to be listed here, and there could be other things too. So you never know if there's going to be some other natural event like a tornado or something that brings that down. So that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, please give me a call down here in the landscape design classroom. But I appreciate your time and have a great day, folks.